I don't think so. Like, I haven't met anyone that actually makes these things on purpose. It just usually it's a legality that you have to be forced to put, right? It's just usually we take this coding thing as in like the do no harm from Google, that we all assume that none of us is actually gonna do any harm. It's the same reason why we look at the contracts, but we never really read into them. We just sign them. There is this we have to have a contract between a company and employer because if something goes wrong, but we have this inherent like trust that nothing is actually gonna go wrong, right? But we mostly know what goes with the contracts, and we also know, for example, in Spain, that we're going to be protected by Spanish law, and then everything that we work in a company is owned by the company. Like the major things we already know, so we don't really need to look into them. The rest is just legal jargon. So I think we took it the same way. It's just legal jargon that you don't need to work. It's just it states that you shouldn't resell like the music that you buy on iTunes, for example. Like that sounds like common sense. But with more and more data, what started to happen, for what I've seen, is that we don't know these things. We don't really know. We cannot make an assumption, and it's starting to happen that it's not about the company being non-trustworthy or using our data badly. It's about the fact that they got hacked, and that data was there, and we didn't even know that that data was there because no one can read legal things. So I think we need to start being more conscious about what it means to give out our data and our privacy and what we do online, because even if we never read any of those data protection laws, if we still know, we can probably do something about it. It works a little bit better than just not knowing. So there are videos about the Google ones. But Google, for example, is a good example. They are a very good company at actually being very clear about that. Not all the details and in a very broad language, but they have documents online about all of their principles, how they code, how the algorithm works, what happens to the data, and what the response was about GDPR. All of that is actually online. And the beginning, like if you don't want to go more into detail, and Apple also has that, it's written in a language that we understand and with illustrations and things like that. It doesn't really get a lot of attention, and either way, not a lot of people read it. And that's not the first thing that comes up, because that's not what you're supposed to agree to. You're supposed to agree to the legal contract that is completely unreadable. But they do have those principles. Actually, Google is doing a lot of really good stuff about privacy. Most of the documents about privacy and data protection that are happening with universities are made with Googlers. They have some of the people that are more interested in protecting this. But again, it's a very big company, right? So and also they still want to work for that company, and they want that company to make money. It is a work in progress, but there are a lot of videos, and there is a website called Data Rights. That is an open source community. It's a GitHub, and that you can actually put the company, and they basically read those reading agreements for you, and they separate them into different categories, and you can look at the data rights, and they'll tell you like the important stuff, and then under them they say this is the things you should be worried about because it's too broad or because might be a little bit misleading, etc. But it's an open source project, so not all the companies are there. For example, there is no Spanish bank right now in there, so they accept push requests to add more information there, so to add bank inter if you decide to read their terms and conditions and properly interpret them. So it's a work in progress, but I think that the more and more we do about this and people start looking and actually reading this stuff, the more they're gonna have to make it legible. Absolutely. I mean, everything is boring to some people at one point. Like if someone starts talking about reality TV, I'm probably gonna be bored in like 5 minutes because I have zero interest in it. But it is 100% possible to explain it to people. There are actually videos about how they explain this to children. So yes, there is 100%. It's capable to like just explain it to people. It's not very complicated. The same way you can explain how coding works to people, even without that they don't know anything about technology. So I do think that it is, and I think we need to start doing it. because if not, people are gonna stop using your service.